Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after, well, that was a beatdown, ladies and gentlemen. That was a good, old-fashioned beatdown by the Vancouver Canucks as we saw the top two teams in the Western Conference in points percentage clash. And the whole what is it called? The irresistible force versus the immovable object. It wasn't that. It was the irresistible force running over the very movable object on this night. This was, the garbage truck going right through, a Toyota Yaris, if you will, 2007 Toyota Yaris. Listen, you just got to drive those things and make sure you keep them in a safe spot. But no, this was a night in which I feel like the Renny truth teller persona, truth teller, right? The teller of truths. It's like someone tried to steal my gig on this night, because if you heard Rick Bowness after the game, he made no bones about it and was back to the Rick Bowness of old, telling massive harsh truth, saying that this, in his opinion, was the worst game that he had seen his Winnipeg Jets play in the entire time that he's been here. Now, it's interesting because if you think about the Jets and the way that they kind of fell apart down the stretch last season, I was thinking there had to have been a game in which the Jets didn't play as well as they did in this one. But there's nothing that immediately pops to my mind. If there's something for all you out there and you think that there's something, a different game that was, maybe a little bit worse, I can't think of the Jets getting beat down the way that they did in this game here tonight. I don't want to take anything away from the Vancouver Canucks on this night. Rick Bowness wasn't giving them a lot. I will say this: if you heard Rick Tocchet's comments before the game, they really dug in to that last game that they played against the Winnipeg Jets. And this is a team that clearly learned their lessons. Like last night, I was talking with the Winnipeg Jets after the Seattle Kraken victory, and I wondered if there had been, they just played better than they did earlier in the week on the Tuesday, or if there had been lessons learned on how to play against that team, how to buckle down. I think, it wasn't like an overwhelming answer. I think it felt that there had been some lessons learned. Give Rick Tocchet credit here in this situation. The Winnipeg Jets beat this team last time they played. It was a 4-2 victory. And the Canucks learned their lesson. Their coaching staff learned their lesson. He talked to Rick Tocchet before this game about watching video, breaking it down, coming up with a lot of plans. We'll dig into it later on. But someone on our timeline after Mike McIntyre, I should try and find it here. Actually, I will find it. I'll give a shout out. I don't do this often, but coming off of the X, the Twitter, Fisi, Winnipeg Fisi talked about. So Mike McIntyre had said that Rick Bowness, speaking with both Ken Wiebe and myself in Vancouver, said the bottom line is that's the worst game we have played in my 2 years here by far, because we didn't have one player play a good game. Not one. It starts there and it ends there. And Winnipeg Fisi says he's not wrong. It would be nice for him to take some responsibility in it, though. I agree with this. I agree with this statement, because to me, what I saw was a Vancouver Canucks team that countered what the Winnipeg Jets did well. Hey, when the Winnipeg Jets are playing teams and they just kind of bottle up the neutral zone, and what that opposing team does is they flip the puck in behind the defenseman, and the one defenseman of the Jets comes over and heads off the player who's trying to, get after that puck, and the other Jets defenseman has all the time in the world to to go pick up that puck, and lots of free space, and the Jets just turn it back up ice. That wasn't happening tonight, and there's a very specific reason why. The Vancouver Canucks were throwing the puck up, and when the Jets would close on the player who's typically supposed to dump it in, that player would throw it across the ice to buy a little bit of time, but also to get that one Jets defenseman to commit, and then that next player would dump it in, and what they would have is a third player coming straight down the middle or up the ice with speed, who was consistently beating the Jets defenseman. This wasn't a lack of effort thing by the Winnipeg Jets. This was a game plan that the Vancouver Canucks had on this night that the Jets did not have an answer for, as did the Canucks in their own defensive zone, really, really running a lot of interference. And when I say that, I don't mean the actual penalty, but the Jets do something really well. They get in the way of the skating lanes of players trying to forecheck, and they buy their own players time. The Vancouver Canucks beat the Jets at their own game here tonight. They had all kinds of time, easy breakouts. Their game plan tonight, they executed everything Rick Tocchet said they were going to come into this game and try and execute. They did execute on this night. So yes, we can say the Winnipeg Jets played their worst game and that nobody showed up. But every moment it looked like a player was trying to bust out. Mason Appleton had a pretty good game. Lowry looked like he was getting going sometimes. Niederreiter looked like he was getting going a couple times. Mark Scheifele, the fourth line, came out for a couple of really good shifts. And what happened was the Vancouver Canucks just absorbed it. They just handled it. They just snuffed it out. This was, like I've said about the Winnipeg Jets in the past, this was a wrestling match in which the Vancouver Canucks grabbed the Winnipeg Jets as soon as the match started, slipped around behind them, put them in a sleeper hold, and gave them nothing for the entirety of the match until the Jets just stopped lifting their arm, which probably was sometime, in the second period of this game. I have to, I'm not going to call it an apology, but maybe a retraction. You've heard me talk a lot in this space about the Vancouver Canucks and that I didn't think they had it to be a dangerous team in the playoffs. They play like that. That was legit. What you saw there was legit. If you're the Winnipeg Jets, and we've talked in the past about how they played about and how they've struggled with the Dallas Stars, that's legit. How they've played against the Vegas Golden Knights earlier in the year, that's legit. Like, these are mountains they need to overcome. I hadn't seen the Vancouver Canucks as being a mountain the Jets had to overcome. Boy, oh boy, did they show me something tonight. The Vancouver Canucks play like that, defensively sound, great goaltending, opportunistic scoring up front. Great forecheck by that team, shutting down lanes, outworking the Jets, winning board battles. There is nothing they didn't do right on this night. And hey, did the Jets have their fastball? I don't think they had their fastball on this night, but do not take away what the Vancouver Canucks did to the Winnipeg Jets tonight. It's up to the Jets now. They've got one more game, and maybe it'll be meaningless. But the next step in the Jets facing the Vancouver Canucks, if it happens in the playoffs, is finding a way to counter and come up with a better game plan than they had here tonight, because the Canucks had the better game plan. They executed it better. They had the better effort. They had the better execution. They were far and away the best team on this night. And that's all I've got to say about that before we bring in the man with the best music in the business. Everybody, here comes Kenny. Kenny, looking good again, my friend. Love the black. Love how you do it, work in the black tie. I think you're trying to steal my idea. I think you're trying to take away from my Monday night garb. We talked about this. We talked
about word today. I'm just giving the fans a sneak peek at maybe what you're going to be looking at. Don't worry.
There you go. Yeah, and listen, if you hadn't packed before we had that conversation, I could actually say something. I can't. Really, I'm following you in on this one, Kenny, but a little bit of a sneak preview of what's going to happen Monday. It's another Sportsnet game. It's going to be the Washington Capitals and the Winnipeg Jets. But Ken, looking like $1 million, looking like a Vittorio man. And of course, you look like a Vittorio man because you are a Vittorio man, because you've done what our audience should be doing if they want to look like $1 million. And that's head on down to Corden Avenue, see the boys of Vittorio Rossi, walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you, ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right. Ken, let's get right to it. What did you see tonight in the Winnipeg Jets performance?
Oh, I saw downright domination, and I actually quite appreciate the fact that the the Jets were speaking the truth serum or had the truth serum out today post game. Also,
Yeah.
all of Nate Schmidt, Mason Appleton, and obviously Rick Bowness were dropping truth bombs everywhere, and that's good. That's how a team should feel. It should feel unacceptable. I loved Mason Appleton's response. Rick Bowness didn't like it. Sean, both you and I had to lean in to hear Rick Bowness.
Yes.
He was talking and it wasn't because he lost his voice. It was because he was that angry.
Mm-hmm.
And he was not interested in dissecting things either. He just didn't like it at all. And I mean, it's hard to argue. I mean, it was one of the worst games they played. Were there stretches where there were pieces of the Jets game that were maybe showing like bubbling to the surface? Absolutely. We talked about it upstairs, sitting side by side. I mean, they had a fourth line shift kind of got them back in it. And the third line was really rolling. Mason Appleton had the best scoring chances of the entire game. 5 shots on net for Appleton. I guess you could, if we were, going to quibble, I mean, Mason Appleton, I think you could say he had an okay game. 5 shots on goal, 7 shot
Jets player tonight.
He was the best Jet, and I think it was by a significant margin. But I also love the fact that Mason Appleton was downright pissed off at himself for not burying the scoring chance when it was 2-0. Great play by Lowry in front. Yes, he was a little bit low, and it was a sharp angle, but Appleton said flat out, I had 3/4 of the net to shoot at, and I got to elevate that. So, I mean, I love the fact that they're not just, I got a good scoring chance. Those are going to go in. That's good. When you're holding yourself to a high account, that's when you get results. Sean, this was a great example. I mean, and you touched on it. You'd seen a couple of loose games from the Canucks. There was nothing loose about this Canucks game.
Nothing.
1 or 2 breakdowns where Appleton is all alone. Lowry makes a nice play down low, but they checked their asses off today, and it was an impressive thing to watch because, we haven't seen a ton of them, but what we've seen, we've said it constantly, Sean, they remind us of the old Jets, the Jets that weren't as committed in the defensive zone. We saw nothing of that today. Nothing but commitment all over the ice, neutral zone, forecheck, defensive zone, swarming. Like, I just thought that they were all over the Jets. I mean, I asked Nate Schmidt if the Canucks beat them at their own game. He said own game. They never even got to their game, but that was my entire point. The Canucks prevented the Jets from getting to their game because of how well they played with and without the puck. So, I mean, again, we're not going to be going on ad nauseum about the Canucks, but they deserve their due in this game. They were the better team, and it wasn't close. They won all the races, almost all the battles, and won basically all of the categories. Special teams, 5-on-5, everything else. They had the best goalie on the ice. Jets didn't even bother, outside of Appleton's chances. They never even tested the goaltender. And Sean, a huge missed opportunity for the Jets. Hey, Casey DeSmith's having a really nice year, Sean, as a backup, or he had a good start, but now he's 295, 898. They never even really made him work in the entire time that he was in the net for half the game. So that, to me, I think would have been a part of Rick Bowness's frustration. They just had nothing going. Line blender wasn't going. Fans were up in arms that they didn't go to Ehlers, Scheifele, and Connor right away. But no one was going. Now, again, is that a reason to try those guys again? Sure. But, they tried them in the third when it was too late, I guess. Too little, too late. And not a lot was happening once that got reunited either. Now, that's not to say they shouldn't try it again down the road, but it was a reminder that it's not just an automatic snap of your fingers and that line scores 3 goals every single time. It just doesn't work that way in the NHL. And it doesn't even work that way for 3 players as gifted and talented as those 3 players. So, I mean, again, this is burn the tape. I think I saw a ton of that on X and Twitter. I mean, is that true to a degree? Yes. But if you're not learning the lessons from the game, shouldn't be playing the game, right? I mean, you can't just burn the tape and say that was a one-off. You have to learn, because you don't want that to happen to you again if you're a member of the Winnipeg Jets. And you can't allow it to happen because, as Mason Appleton said, it's unacceptable to play at that level, especially in a marquee matchup against a team you're trying to show that team that you're better than them, that you're going to catch them in the standings. Jets didn't do that today. The team making the statement was clearly the Vancouver Canucks, and it'll be interesting, Sean. I mean, by the time we roll out to April 17th, that game either could mean a whole lot or it could mean a whole lot of nothing for either team. But to me, I think there's still a chance that it's going to mean something. I don't think it's just necessarily going to be the Abbotsford Canucks and the Manitoba Moose going head to head. But I mean, some things could be sorted out by game 81. But I hope there's something on the line because I'd love to see which team makes the necessary adjustments and plays hard because, quite frankly, that could be a potential playoff matchup at some point down the road for both of those teams. And both of those teams still would have something to prove being 1-1 in this season.
It definitely felt on this night like the Canucks made okay. I always go back to this, Ken, and a lot of times I do because we were both in this series together. But when we go back to that 2019 series between the Dallas Stars and the St. Louis Blues, and one thing that always stands out is the in-series adjustments that you saw being made between Montgomery and Chief. I forget. I'm not
Craig Berube.
Craig Berube. In that series. But this felt like if you're going to break this series up that they played against each other, I think the Jets took the last game they played really seriously. And I think the Vancouver Canucks did as well. And the Jets come out on top, and they did it looking like they were playing their style of game. This was an adjustment game. And this was, in my mind, the Jets not really adapting well to those adjustments. We can say that they weren't going all these kind of things, but there's plenty of times the Jets have not been going and got themselves going, right? There's a ton of, they did it against the LA Kings, that big comeback not long ago, a comeback against the Carolina Hurricanes. This to me is a night where they were expecting the Vancouver Canucks to come out and be the team that they saw last time, and then saw a new team and didn't know how to handle it. And to me, this may be one of those wake up calls. And why don't we do it right now and give this game as the pristine wake up call, pristine roofing wake up call for the Winnipeg Jets? Because this is the kind of game that shows you when you play really good teams and they make adjustments, it's a totally different game, and you've got to be able to, make in-game adjustments. They weren't able to do it, so let's hand it out now and give the pristine roofing wake-up call to the Winnipeg Jets, who I think got one from the Vancouver Canucks tonight in the idea of in-season series adjustments. The Vancouver Canucks made great ones in this game, and the Jets could not figure out how to respond to that. So give them that wake-up call, and of course, that means it's time for you to give North End Rick the wake-up call. Yeah, I know it's 1 o'clock in the morning there. Is that what it is? 1 o'clock in the morning back home?
Man, if it's 3 o'clock, but hey, you got a real problem. It is spring forward today, though. Spring forward, right?
Oh, actually, I think
Don't
so.
forget.
Right at this time, it's actually gone to 2 o'clock. There you go. Anyways, North End Rick, 1-204-981-6289. Of course, you can call Pristine Roofing at 204-237-7663. Remember, Pristine Roofing, donating, handing out, pulling off a free roof for someone who's deserving. So if you know anyone in your life who is deserving or could use a break in life and get a free roof, give those either North End Rick or Pristine Roofing a call. Tell them who you think deserves it, and they just may get a brand new roof done courtesy of the folks at Pristine Roofing. Let's get right to the Morrisey and Hughes face off here tonight. Now, I'm going to just talk quickly for a second here, because I have been talking quite a bit recently about Josh Morrisey and thinking that he should be getting into the Norris Trophy conversation. Boy, oh boy, there's been a couple times it's happened, and people talk about it in the chat rooms about the Jets on the biggest stage, sometimes not finding their footing. This was a perfect opportunity for Josh Morrisey to take what he's done lately and say, now I'm going to do it against the very best defenseman in the league right now, against Quinn Hughes. This wasn't a competition, Ken. Quinn Hughes showed everything tonight about what makes him dangerous offensively, how good you remarked time and time again as we were sitting watching the game with each other about how much Quinn Hughes has grown as a defenseman. This is the kind of game right now that if, there's a lot of people who are thinking of voting on this award, on the Norris Trophy, and taking a look at these players, if this sticks in their mind, I don't like Josh Morrisey's chances going forward.
Yeah, it was a tough night. I mean, I think Beer League said it perfectly. Morrisey looked human this evening, and that's natural over the course of 82 games. It was a marquee matchup, and it didn't go in Josh's favor. I mean, but he had lots of company on that front. Jets had nobody going. Josh had a tough go on the ice for all 4 even strength goals against. Um, he had 2 shots on goal, 3 attempts, 1 giveaway in 20 minutes and 3 seconds of ice time. He had a minor penalty, kind of more leverage play where Lindholm was on the inside of him and has lost control of his stick and clipped him in the visor. So, uh, you know, it just was a tough night. I mean, but again, I'm not out here saying that Josh was responsible for all 4 goals. He certainly wasn't, but he also wasn't as dynamic as he has been. And the player who was dynamic, Sean, and I don't know, I'm quite comfortable saying Quinn Hughes was the most dynamic player on the ice this evening. He had 8 shot attempts. He had 2 assists. And I think the most important play he made in the entire game was something that won't show up on the score sheet. It's how he out leveraged Mark Scheifele down low in the defensive zone, in the offensive zone for Scheifele. I mean, this is an area where Mark Scheifele owns that part of the ice against a lot of defensemen, a majority of them in the league. And I think that Quinn Hughes showed a great example of his improvement in the defensive zone, winning that puck battle, finding leverage, and stealing the puck from Mark. That was a really smart play by a player who's having a incredible season. And again, I totally know where you're coming from, and you're not saying this, but this is why it's important. Like small sample sizes. This was a tough night. There's no doubt about that. I mean, Josh was not the best defenseman on the ice. Quinn Hughes was, but again, Josh Morrissey's been the best defenseman and often the best player on the ice for a good stretch of the last, 14, 15 games for the Jets. So
No
I
doubt.
don't think it hurts his overall status in terms of being in a battle for a finalist position. But I
Oh, I
mean,
couldn't disagree with you more. Couldn't
sorry,
disagree with you
tonight
more.
will hurt him. I'm just saying his body of work is worthwhile of being in consideration. I'm not saying that today didn't help his cause. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that despite today, how he's played in the last 2 months still warrants consideration. But Sean, there's 19 games left. He's going to have a big finish in order to get himself into that spot to be a finalist and not just a top 5 guy. I don't think it's not over for him. I mean, he
no,
still has a
and
chance to make an impression because of how well he's played in this middle quarter of the year.
no doubt, and I'm not saying it's over, but like here, look, Elias McCracken is clearly butthurt at my comment. Says, "Jesus, it was an off game for JMO. That's all." No, that's not all it is here. If you're going to get into the Josh Morrissey does not have anywhere near the points at the top end of the NHL defenseman, and like it or not, that's what a lot of people look at. So Cale Makar having the kind of year that he's having, it's going to be tough to look at what he's doing and not and like because we know how good he is as a player and the points are just easily there. And let's be honest, the people who are voting on this award, they're not digging in and pouring over volumes of video. The vast majority of them aren't. A lot of them are looking up at the stats. Elias McCracken, you can get as mad as you want about me saying this. This was an opportunity for Josh Morrissey on this night to go up against the guy who's the clear front runner and have one of those nights where it's an eye opener and say, like, yeah, this guy's great, but how about that Josh Morrissey? This was a massive swing and a miss for that. So this as an opportunity now, if anyone looks at this down the road and they say, well, where does Josh Morrissey go? And like you're saying, Ken, you look at the body of work. I'm not going to say one game ruins everything, but this was not the game to have an off night against the other guy who goes on and is, like you said, the best player on the ice. What a lot of people will take away from that game is that Hughes is here and Josh Morrissey is here. That's what they'll take away from it. That will affect Josh. He needed to have the kind of a performance that opens people's eyes to the fact that even though he's 7th and 20 points back in defenseman scoring, that he still is someone worth considering. It's a massive opportunity missed in that tonight. And I like, listen, let's be honest with ourselves. Josh getting into that top 3 was a long shot. It was always going to be a long shot, especially where he is. I think we know from watching him, we think that he deserves a better fate. He did not help himself on this night. And if Elias McCracken wants to drop it off and say it was just an off game, that's all. Hey, keep hoping, buddy.
Yeah, I think the point is that there's still a quarter of the season left and a lot can happen in that time. But it's right now, it's very clear that Josh has ground to make up. And I think we can all agree on that. And those are the facts. But, I still think that he can finish the season incredibly strong and make a case for himself, a strong case. But again, that's up to the last 19 games here. That's the beauty of hockey.
Let's get into Hellebuyck's night. What'd you think?
I didn't like it. I didn't like a lot of it. He didn't look like I don't even know how to say it. I mean, I'm not a goalie expert. He just did not look comfortable in the crease. I don't think he looked he was not. There's been many nights, Sean, that Connor Hellebuyck's been incredibly dialed in. This was not one of them. I still don't know how the second goal went in, quite frankly, from Höglander on the shot. If it either hit DeMello or Hellebuyck, either Hellebuyck knocked it in or he almost got in the way. It was just a very strange play, Sean. I didn't like his game. Yes, he was overworked in the first period, no doubt. There were 21 shots on net. I mean, that's too much work for anyone, but I didn't find Connor to be he wasn't as sharp as normal. I didn't think he was tracking the puck as well as he often does. Hey man, he still made some very good saves, but I didn't think it's very clear, Sean. Before Demko was hurt, Demko was sharp in the few opportunities he had to face. He made a couple of really big saves, but Hellebuyck just didn't come up with the big save when the team needed him. He's done it all year long. Today was not one of those nights. I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock in it, but I mean, at the same time, I mean, this was start number 46 for him this year. So we can't ignore the fact that, I was listening to a stat today. I had a game on this afternoon, Sean. Sergei Bobrovsky, 12 games with 2 or fewer allowed. Connor Hellebuyck in his last 5 starts, 5-4-3-3-3. I mean, I'm not blaming him for that. We know the Jets have been loose in a lot of those nights, but he has not been as sharp as he has been, as he took a strong hold on the Vezina Trophy. Now, he's kind of leaving the door open here. Again, there's 20 games left. He's still the clear front runner, but he hasn't been playing on a Vezina-like level for many of those last 5 starts. Now, does that mean he's overworked? No, but I do think it does mean that you can put him in the lab for a little while, let him spend some time with Wade Flaherty. We've both talked about this. I don't know if they'll do it or not. I would have no problem whatsoever if the Jets went back to Laurent Brossoit on Monday and gave Connor Hellebuyck a couple days to get ready for the Nashville Predators on Wednesday. I think that's the matchup. I'll double check, but
it is.
And then the Ducks are here on Friday before they go on the road for the 5-gamer. So, it's a big week for the Jets. Nashville, I think, won again tonight. That's 10-0-1 now on a massive heater. So again, I don't have any concerns. The Jets still have the best tandem in the NHL, including the Vezina frontrunner. But today didn't look like it. But again, the Jets had too many passengers. They had no players going. That included Connor Hellebuyck today. Rick didn't have to name names. When you say you have no one going from essentially your goaltender right through your roster, that means you have no players going. And this wasn't a night where Connor Hellebuyck was able to, overcome the deficiencies of his team in front of him as they struggled as mightily as we've seen and as Rick Bowness has seen in 2 years. So, didn't really. I didn't find him to be locked in like we've seen on a number of nights this year. I would say that some people are saying, is it because he was sick? I don't think so. I spoke with Connor Hellebuyck in Seattle yesterday after the morning skate. It was not an interview. It was informal. Just asked how he was feeling. He said it was like a 12-hour bug, and he was feeling fine already yesterday. Now, I have no idea if that means he lost weight or not, and I don't want to, speculate or make excuses for him. He said he was feeling fine the day after. He started today, and he didn't play a great game. But again, it's nothing to freak out about. But when you praise someone for being great all the time, sometimes when they're not great, you have to mention that too. It doesn't change your opinion of how the player is playing this season. I just didn't think he had a strong night. It's kind of that simple for me.
I think you are bringing up the idea, and maybe it's a conversation to have. I guess we're having it right now, but the idea of him opening the door, like to me, Connor Hellebuyck was the runaway winner of the goaltender, the Vezina Trophy winner this season. But now, all of a sudden, to your point, you take a look. Sergei Bobrovsky and Connor Hellebuyck have played the same amount of games this year. Sergei Bobrovsky has 2 more wins than Connor Hellebuyck. Sergei Bobrovsky has now passed him in goals against average, and Sergei Bobrovsky has more shutouts than Connor Hellebuyck, and Sergei Bobrovsky also has not as high a save percentage as Connor Hellebuyck does, but while not Connor Hellebuyck has a 921 save percentage, Bobrovsky has a 918 save percentage, so they are right there. Put it this way, and I know that a lot of people are going to talk about, the deeper stats and the goals saved above expected and all those different kind of things. That's definitely going to come into play here. How versed are the people who are looking into this award in those kind of stats? Because if you look at the traditional goalie stats, these goalies look a lot alike. Right. And I will contend this. We've seen it before, and I'm going to get to Laurent Brossoit here, but I've said this before. Laurent Brossoit, when he's in the net, the Jets look no different. The Jets said as much in the last game that they played. That is something that may play against Connor Hellebuyck. There's going to be someone out there who's going to try and say, well, actually, though, Connor Hellebuyck has the same numbers as Laurent Brossoit, which tells me Connor Hellebuyck's numbers are a result of his team. Whereas, and I don't even know what the backup record is for Sergei Bobrovsky. I don't know what that's looking like right now. But
Stolarz
if those numbers,
is having a good year also.
Well, Stolarz is sitting at 925.
925
and he's got a shutout, and he's got a 2.02 goals against average. So these are 2 players on 2 really good teams. But to your point, the last 2 games here, the last game, I thought Connor Hellebuyck cost the Jets a victory. Tonight, that wasn't the case, but he in no way helped them. In the Renny stat, who was the better goalie in this game? Connor Hellebuyck was the 3rd best goaltender in this game here tonight. So that didn't play out well for him. So to your point, I still think in my mind he's the clear-cut Vezina Trophy winner, but I think he's put himself in a situation now where if people want to, and listen, this is my take on what, I'm sorry, you and I have this argument all the time. I'm not saying you do it. I think there's a lot of writers out there who try to show how smart they are, and they think they're trying to show how smart they are by
GMs vote on
the
yes,
Vezina. That's right.
Sorry. So you can't be blaming us. You can't be blaming the writers on this.
Damn it. I wanted to.
I know you did. That's why I'm going to interrupt you before you erupted. It's okay.
I mean, I think in this case, when it comes to the GMs have the pulse on this a little bit better. They understand. They know what they're going into. But listen, here's another thing that plays into this, Ken. Sergei Bobrovsky last year went on a heater and looked unstoppable for the Florida Panthers and took them to the Stanley Cup final, whereas Connor Hellebuyck, as I've said it before, failed to launch in the playoffs again last year, was outdueled by the player that plays backup for him now. So if you're looking at recency bias, there's going to be people out there that take a look at Sergei Bobrovsky. I've heard it before around the All-Star game. You heard a lot of talk about Sergei Bobrovsky. There's starting to be a buzz about him. So don't be surprised if there's some people out there who are starting to turn around and look and say, yeah, but Bobrovsky was unbeatable down the stretch in the playoffs until they got to the Stanley Cup final last year. And then he's come in this year and his team is looking like they're going to win the President's Trophy. And the numbers are pretty much the same outside of the advanced stats, which I don't know how many GMs are completely and totally bought in on that. I don't know how many GMs would actually consult their stats department and say, hey, what would you say about this? I don't think that necessarily happens. So to your point, it's just a roundabout way of saying there's a lot of evidence to back up the idea that the door has been opened up here. Connor Hellebuyck, if he doesn't get back to what we've seen from him earlier this year, and if what we're seeing from him as of late starts to continue, there's a very real possibility that the one horse race that we saw for this award could very much get tightened and be a photo finish down the stretch. Ken, give a shout out to Sweet Lou before we move on.
You bet. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Furlan at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@loufurlan.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Furlan, excellent human being, excellent realtor, and excellent supporter of this community, for which we are very thankful. He is supportive of our podcast as well.
I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to go in a little bit of a different direction here with our Cambrian payoff. I think this is, I'm just going to launch the next topic by doing this rather than closing out a topic. But Laurent Brossoit, I would fully be on putting him in on Monday against the, and I think Jeff Kabilis had asked about this idea. There you go. Sorry, Waiters says Brossoit versus Washington and Hellebuyck versus Nashville. This is definitely the direction I would go in. I think Laurent Brossoit at every point this year has essentially, done everything that you've asked him to do. And there's been very little payoff for him in doing that. There's been very little, okay, well, maybe you deserve another shot. Maybe, hey, if we're getting into the conversation about the potential for Hellebuyck to be getting tired with the amount of games that he's played, this is unacceptable if that's actually the case, given what Laurent Brossoit has done for the Winnipeg Jets this year. And really, if there's a guy who's earned more time in the crease, it's him. So I think, based on what we've seen from Hellebuyck the last couple games and what we've seen from Brossoit for a long time now, including the shutout that we saw from him last night, I would be going in the direction, if I were Rick Bowness. Hey, if Rick Bowness is sitting there and saying, we need to shake this up, no one was going in that last game, I don't see a problem in putting Laurent Brossoit in for the next game and being like, he's the guy who's going right now. And I want to get everybody launched. I want to have a good start with Tyler Toffoli in. We're going to go with Laurent Brossoit because he's earned the opportunity. I think that would really pay off. And if you're looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. Ken, would you be on board with Laurent Brossoit starting the next game?
I could see why they would make a case for it, for sure. Laurent Brossoit started 3 of the last 8 games for the Jets and has been sharp in all 3 of them. Again, it would not be punishment. It would be a reward for a job well done.
Exactly.
Right? This is what we're talking about.
Exactly.
This is not punishment for Hellebuyck. It would be a chance to, like I said, I mean, I don't know if it was a technical issue or whatever else today for Hellebuyck. He just didn't look like himself. Like there's really no other way to describe it, right? I mean, he just didn't look like himself. So whether that means he needs, whether it's a breather or a reset or whatever, I don't think it's like I said, I'm not overreacting about it, but he didn't have a ton of work. We know he was a little bit bored in the game against the Kraken, but he still was sharp when he was called upon. He's been sharp when called upon. And, again, we understand the role of a backup. I mean, Laurent Brossoit is not going to be a backup next year. We know this. So when a guy has a shutout, backup, starter, whatever, you would be well within your rights to run the guy back out there. I mean, there's no issue with that whatsoever. I mean, I'm not here banging on the table saying he must do it or else, but I think it would be something that would be, well received. And Sean, we know this too. I mean, Connor Hellebuyck is at his best when he's being pushed, right? That's not to say that this is not a attempt at, this is not a Shakespearean issue where the backup is trying to take over the job. I mean, Laurent Brossoit said it on numerous occasions. He knows his job, but it also doesn't mean that he doesn't get a reward for when he's playing incredibly well.
Agreed.
So
get the competitive juices going. Sorry, he's the guy going right now. Actually, he hasn't let us down for a really, really long time. So we're going to go with him right now. I know you've had a couple off nights. Maybe we're going to see if a couple nights rest would do you well, Helly. And here we go. Hey, I just got to say this. I'm not sure. Jeff Kabilis may be right here in saying T-Will might have just dropped a cookie take, laugh out loud, which essentially means he's trying to get me to bite on something here. it better be a cookie take, because T Will, who may be, the grand champion of bad takes on the K&R show, says putting in LB is like my beer league team when we have to put in a spare goalie. All of a sudden we're diving around blocking shots because we're trying to protect him more. That's LB. This could not be farther from the truth. The Winnipeg Jets have said it themselves. In fact, they said it just after the last game, where they said nothing at all changes with them. They don't have to change when LB goes in. This is T Will swinging and missing and falling down into a nearby pond in like a America's Funniest Home Videos type whiff on a take in this situation here, if he's being serious about it. Big time. What do you got?
And then, again, we did the last 5-game recap of Hellebuyck, and now the last 5-game recap of Brossoit is 0-2-2-3-4. So again, it's not as simple as goals against and whatever else, but Laurent Brossoit has given the Jets a reason to play him more. We've been saying this for months. Connor Hellebuyck doesn't need 65 starts. The Jets need to have him as sharp as possible for the playoffs. And it's also good to have the second guy sharp, because as we saw in Vegas last year, Laurent Brossoit had the first, I think, 5 for sure, of the playoffs for the Vegas Golden Knights out of the 16. But then they needed Adin Hill to take over. So this is not to say the Jets are going to need 2 goalies to win in the playoffs, but they have 2 goalies that are capable. And again, this doesn't take away anything. Like Josh Morrisey said it yesterday, and he wasn't exaggerating. Connor Hellebuyck, in a lot of people's minds, has been playing at a Hart Trophy level, not just a Vezina Trophy level. But right now, Laurent Brossoit is on a roll, on a heater, and the Jets have the ability to allow Connor Hellebuyck to take a step back and still play Wednesday and Friday if that's what they choose to do. And then too, there's a couple back-to-backs on the next, right? There's for sure one back-to-back on that 5-gamer. So Brossoit is definitely going to be playing. Sorry, there's just the one Saturday, Sunday. So it's well spread out. There's enough starts to go around. Both guys are going to get starts down the stretch. We've said it all along. Brossoit's at 17. I think he needs to get to at least 22. So that means 5 out of the last 19. I think that's a solid number. I think you could go a little bit north of that if you wanted to. But we'll see what happens.
Hey, I just wanted to bring something up before we go too far. I noticed in our last show that, and speaking of T Will, I noticed in our last show that there was a super chat comment left to us by T Konopoli. And at one point, T Will got a hold of me and let me know that there were super chat comments that we hadn't highlighted. I know people leave those super chats to make sure that they get in the show. The way that we do this, we don't have a producer. We miss comments sometimes. It's just the way it goes. If super chats aren't making it into the show, it's because we didn't see them. It's why in the past, we appreciate the generosity. We appreciate you trying to take care of things financially. Ken and I are taking care of things financially on our own in the background here. We want K&R for you to be an experience where we enrich you, where you are rewarded for being our audience. You don't need to reward us. The super chats, I mean, we're just going to miss comments. Sometimes when your comments get in there, they get in there. Sometimes we miss them. But the fact of the matter is your super chats have the same amount of chance of getting in the show as anybody else, which means sometimes they're going to be missed. And I don't like the idea of you paying to get something in the show that we're not able to accommodate with. So I'm just going to ask it again. Please, you don't need to give us the super chat comments. You don't need to pay to get your comments in the show, because we don't want to be letting you down. We want you to feel enriched by the Kenny and Renny experience, not feel like you didn't get your money's worth. And that's, I feel and I worry is what happens if people are throwing super chats in there that we don't include in the show. Ken?
And sorry, and just on that front, I mean, the last 2 days, Sean, we've been approached by countless fans of the show, and it's been awesome to be able to meet them and see them. We went down, took a picture today. Just awesome stuff, right? I mean, it's overwhelming and awesome how the community that we're building and how fired up people, like the fact that someone made a Kenny and Renny sign that they wanted to have shown on Hockey Night tonight here in Vancouver.
I wonder if they did. I guess not. It probably didn't.
Somebody would have taken a picture
out there.
If someone saw it in the chat room, let's speak now. But that, I mean, that was just
let us
amazing.
know. Honestly, like they should have. They should have done that. They should. I mean, I guess you're not a Sportsnet personality anymore. So if it didn't happen, it's your fault.
You're going to
Ken, let's
blame
just
me?
say that.
You're lucky you're back at the hotel.
But
You'd be getting it.
we want to
not
say that
even
was
nice.
so cool. I'm going to get that picture. I didn't have time. I'm going to get that picture into the show next time. But Ken, we were stopped so many times
Amazing.
today, 3 times on the way. A woman just stopped me in the middle of the crowd. She had a Jets jersey on and she said, "I just love you guys and your show." And everywhere we went, people were stopping us, chatting with us. We loved that. This was a really neat environment tonight with so many Jets fans out there, and it's good to see, Ken. And I
Last
know
2
that we've
nights.
had that. Julie Sue is someone who is out where we're probably pretty close to Julie Sue right now. I love that people who are not in the Winnipeg market stay connected with the market, with the fans through the chat room, through our conversations. It means a ton to us that everyone's doing that. But like tonight, we were spoiled again by our
Tremendous.
KNR fans, by our KNR community. And again, to go back to the super chats, I feel and I appreciate the you know, that kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff that Ken and I just absolutely appreciate beyond. Not that we don't appreciate you trying to make financial contributions.
Awesome.
We just, again, we want to make sure that you feel spoiled by us, because boy, oh boy, did you make us feel spoiled here tonight. Ken, before we start moving into some of the business, fourth line, what'd you think of it tonight? We just got to kind of get into that and the Perfetti being scratched.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting for sure. I mean, I thought that, I liked a lot of David Gustafson's game. I thought that fourth line had some good shifts. We didn't get into it too much yesterday, but Morgan Barron is just at a great place in where he's at in terms of what he's been able to do in the last little while here. I mean, and again, you know what? Good on him. This is a guy who was a third line player last year. He knows the Jets just added another forward, right? Since the year, like they added a couple forwards. So I love that he's playing with urgency and getting some things accomplished. When it comes to Perfetti, I mean, it's certainly interesting because Sean, I mean, hey, we're 1 week removed from Cole telling me in the room in Buffalo that it was embarrassing for him and then he never wanted to be scratched again. And 3 games later, 3 games later, he's up in the press box again. So that's going to be tough. It's a tough thing to go through for any player, let alone a young player who had a ton of success throughout the course of this season. Now, it's a great mental challenge. Cole is a strong young man with great upside. He's very mature, but your maturity is tested when you go through these situations. So I don't think that Cole's season is lost and that he can never work his way back in. And I know you're not saying that, but I'm just saying it's a tough time. And I mean, a month ago, we were wondering if it made sense. Someone suggested in the chat room that he should go to the Moose, and I was totally against it. And I don't know. Right now, you're almost curious if and I understand, again, no player ever wants to go down a level, but at the stage they're at right now, I think you could make the case that going to the American Hockey League, whether it's for 1 week or whatever, might help Cole Perfetti feel a little bit more confident in terms of getting more puck touches and letting his mind get him back into a situation where he's driving the play. So anyways, again, I'm not advocating for it, but I think I could understand if that was something that was being considered. I don't think it is being considered, but again, we'll see how it transpires. What we know is that it's going to be harder for Cole to get into the lineup down the stretch. And hey, I'm not here to say Cole Perfetti is finished. No, not even close. This guy's a good player. He's going to be a contributing NHLer, I expect, for a long, long time. But right now, he's in a rut, and he's going to have to work his way out of that rut. And like we talked about before, Sean, unless Cole Perfetti is playing on that second power play and augmenting his minutes in a scenario where he can take over because of some of his greatest gifts, being his vision, passing ability, and hockey IQ, the job of the fourth line is going to often be to check and provide energy. Cole is not a physical player. He's not a fast player. So It's going to be very interesting to see how the coaching staff rolls with that fourth line when Tyler Toffoli is in the lineup on Monday. And then we'll see again what happens after Gabriel Velarde is back after missing a fifth consecutive game. So, I mean, it's a big time ahead for a lot of players. And, challenges are part of the deal. Adversity, part of the game. And how players respond to adversity is important. And I expect Cole to respond really well because he's a very mature person. But, I mean, let's face it, he hasn't gone through scenarios like this a lot in his career. So yes, never. So it's a test. It's a real test. But again, I expect him to handle that test. But it's a rocky road right now. And here's a good question. Let's put that back up quickly. Will Colin Miller be in the lineup on Monday? I'm not sure. I don't personally, Sean. I don't see the Jets going to Colin Miller playing him without a practice with the Jets. But I mean, I wouldn't rule it out, but I would say it would be unlikely. Do you disagree?
No, not at all. Not at all. I agree with you. Whereas a guy like Toffoli, Toffoli comes in with the skill set that you throw in, and it's like, especially with the connection that he's got with Sean Monahan, for sure. Hey, before we go on, I wanted to just talk just quickly before we move on about Cole Perfetti there, but I wanted to bring this up. Patrick Guad says Kupari isn't very effective, and it seems like he is even less noticeable after coming back from his shoulder injury. I see what you're talking about from him tonight in his ability to push. I thought some of the best shifts from a Winnipeg Jets line tonight came from this fourth line. But let's be honest with ourselves. Anyone who remembers at the beginning of the season, Rennie's take on Kupari compared to the rest of the Winnipeg media, can we just admit that this was a resounding ass kicking by Renny on this take, whereas we were hearing from other members of the media that Kupari was going to lead to being like the best fourth line the Winnipeg Jets had ever had? This is a Renny take that is solid gold that I took a lot of flack at the beginning of the year on this show for. People, show up, apologize, and I'll forgive you, but that apology better be coming post haste. But other than that, Cole Perfetti, I know you said I'm not saying that, Ken, about him like not being able to get into the lineup, but for the most part, he can't get back in this lineup. I mean, he may get thrown into the fourth line every once in a while, but like you said, the majority of times they're going to want to have him have a fourth line that pushes and checks and does all those kind of things, which is not his bread and butter. Cole Perfetti is one of those guys that he's like out of the lineup or he's in the top six, right? And he's been spit out the bottom of the top six here, right? Alex Iafallo is probably going to make his way down to that wing because he's got a better combination of being a defensive player, defensively sound, but also being able to score coming out of that role. Nemesnikov is going to make his way down to the fourth line. And then you've got Gustafsson, who can play that pressure game better. You've got, again, Rasmus Kupari, who can play that pressure game better. Like the way that Cole Perfetti, I never bring up Barron. Someone talked about this last show. I don't bring him up because Barron is on the fourth line. He's been the anchor for the fourth line this year. He's not coming off, period. The Jets like what he does in that spot. That's not changing. So Cole Perfetti may get in here and there. Maybe you're thinking, okay, well, with Nemesnikov, we can throw Perfetti on there and maybe take advantage of this team with a sneaky potential scoring fourth line. But other than that, his chance to get back in the lineup is with the top six, and that ship had sailed before they added Toffoli. Now that Toffoli's in there, as long as injuries don't devastate this team, Cole Perfetti, his audition with the Winnipeg Jets this year is over now. That doesn't mean he doesn't have a future with the team. Clearly, he does because they didn't try and move on from him in the trade deadline or anything like that. But this is going to be incumbent upon Cole Perfetti to take this and be that guy who the future of the Winnipeg Jets is something they believe is going to rest partly on his shoulders, and he needs to start looking towards that, pick up what he can from this run. But I don't see a scenario by which Cole Perfetti practices his way back into the lineup, right? And if he does get a shot in the top 6, then he's got to be so good when he gets in there that he bumps one of Nick Ehlers or Kyle Connor or Gabe Vilardi or Tyler Toffoli. I do not see it happening because I don't know where you put those players because the third line's not getting broken up. So do you see Tyler Toffoli or Nick Ehlers or Kyle Connor or Gabe Vilardi playing on the fourth line? That's not happening, people. So to me, this is very obvious. The ship has sailed already for Cole Perfetti. It's going to be tough. Like you'd said, this hasn't happened to him in his career. He's spent his entire hockey life being the guy on top. And now for the first time, he hasn't been able, he's been pushed out of a lineup like that. It's going to be tough. He's going to have to, handle it the right way. If he handles it the right way, he's going to come out and be very important for the Jets going down the stretch. But this year, his body of work has spoken in a manner that it's not going to be enough to get him into a lineup that thinks it's got a serious chance of challenging for a championship. Okay, Ken, your Johnson Group got you covered play of the game.
Oh, we had one. You're gonna. It was a break. What was the?
It was on the power play. To me, it was on the power play. There's a pass across that it may just be the keg save of the game. It's a toe save by Connor Hellebuyck, but it's a clean pass that is not a clean pass because Dylan DeMello gets his stick in the way on the power play. That little difference of what he does there is that the player has to find the puck and doesn't have time to roof it. If he roofs it, just like Mason Appleton's goal, but that shot that was stolen away from him, if he roofs it, Connor Hellebuyck can't get to that, and it's another goal. So Dylan DeMello saves a goal there. That's my Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. If you have anything else, Ken, let me know.
No, that was it. We were in unison. And
in
again,
unison
I'm still not certain that it was Hellebuyck's skate that stopped it. It might have been somebody, the defenseman that was standing beside him. I'm still not certain on that.
You can let us know, folks. I'm fairly certain it was his pad that got across and got to the post. It's a good save. In fact, that's where I'm going to go in just a little bit here. But before we do, I just want to ask, do you run a small business in Canada? If you do, you need to look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more, and that, my friends, is the Johnson Group, the Kenny and Renny OGs got you covered play of the game. Moving on to the TCB lamplighter of the game, Ken. Which of Vancouver's goals,
which of the 5
did you like the most?
Well, I personally like the 2-on-1 delivery, Teddy Bluger through the 5-hole of Dylan DeMello to Phil Di Giuseppe at 17 minutes of the first period. And that came right after a glorious chance for Mason Appleton at one end. It turned into an odd man rush at the other. And instead of a 2-1 game, it was a 3-0 game, and the Jets never recovered, quite frankly.
I'll go with their first goal. I think it was an important goal. We talked about just setting the Jets on their heels, and to me, it's an example of the Canucks playing a harder game than they played against the Jets the last time. It's basically they just push the puck to the net and keep pushing it to the net. It's a shot, they get it to the front of the net. They've got a guy fighting with a defenseman to push it past Hellebuyck, and then you've got JT Miller, one of their stars, in tight, putting it in, taking a cross check from behind, falling down. These are all the things that if the Winnipeg Jets had done this, you would be saying these are the kind of goals you can score in the playoffs. Again, this is another sign to me tonight. I've been like a retraction of what I've said about the Canucks. And to be fair, I covered a number of their games. We've seen them play. I personally hosted 2 of their broadcasts. They looked nothing like this. I didn't know that they could look like this. Now that I know that, the Canucks made a bit of a believer out of me here tonight. And that goal right there is the kind of goal that the Canucks will be able to score in the playoffs time and time again, because it's the right way to do it. They out-Jets the Jets on this night, and that goal is a good example of it.
Just a quick one. Like Höglander, that was kind of a between the legs shot, right? The initial shotting. It was like that was kind of the ridiculous part. I thought Höglander was great tonight. And again, Höglander, former line mate of David Gustafsson at the World Juniors. So this is a guy that was certainly last year he was down in the American Hockey League. I think he was healthy scratched a bit earlier this year. I mean, and he's got 20 goals. I mean, what a great year he's having. Anyways, just wanted to add that part of the goal. It was very impressive.
Great comment by Philly Danger here, who says the lamplighter today is the one we pulled from the fridge. Hey, that is always the best lamplighter of the night, no doubt. But hey, like Philly Danger just did share with us your lamplighter of the night, and you're automatically entered to win a Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you cannot wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your 8-pack, head on down to TransCanada Brewing Company. Join them in their tap room at 11290 Kenniston, where they've got all those great beers, all that great food. The pizzas blow your mind, and the atmosphere is absolutely phenomenal, which you will know if you join us on April 6th at the final K&R Live podcast at the end of the year, April 6th. Go to Eventbrite. You see it right here. Kenny and Renny Live podcast tickets. More tickets sold since the last time, so the room is closing. It's closing fast. If you are sitting around and expecting to go, buy the tickets, or they're not going to be there for you to buy. That show is going to close out, and it's going to close out well before that show comes to fruition. Anyways, sharing with you our lamplighter winner from the last game, that would be Adam Dimitriw, Dmytriw. Adam Dimitriw, listen, if you want your Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, you need to direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Give me your full name, give me your email, and I will email you a voucher for a Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company, the absolute nectar of the gods, which brings us to the keg save of the game. What do you got, Ken?
Yeah, even though Mason Appleton thought he had more net to shoot at than he did, I thought the save by Demko was a pivotal moment in the hockey game. It was a turning point in some ways. Instead of a 2-1 game, the pad save by Demko leads to the Canucks getting that odd man rush for the goal from Phil DiGiuseppe that I just mentioned. So to me, I'm going with the Demko save on a night where the Jets were blanked 5-0. And again, for the folks wondering, Rick Tocchet didn't give a ton of information, but he did say he did not expect the Demko injury to be serious, though he was a little bit vague about it, and that's natural given the time of the year.
Sorry, I'm just getting sidetracked here because I saw Hustler having a conversation with Brent Bellamy. I think we know who he is. Writes often articles in the Winnipeg Free Press. City planner type articles.
Yep.
I saw him coming with a lot of the people. Chuck Davidson, I think, was on the flight, and they were coming down to Seattle. And Brent Bellamy says, after seeing Seattle and Vancouver, I absolutely reject any complaints about in-game experience, seat width, arena quality, concourse width, music, concessions, cost or selection, ticket cost, after game location. Every experience is different, but Winnipeg is every bit as good. I'm sorry, this is a massive swing and a miss for me. This is a guy who talks about, the construction of buildings and stuff like that. So let's just couch this by saying Brent Bellamy knows far more about this kind of stuff than I do. I cannot get behind what he's saying here at all. If he thinks that the game experience at Winnipeg Jets game is the same as what we saw in Seattle and the same as what we saw here tonight in Vancouver, I am miles apart in agreeing with him on this topic. Anyways, back to the keg save of the game. I go with Connor Hellebuyck making that save on the on that power play, although I give a massive assist and a got you covered moment to Dylan DeMello in that situation. So that's my keg save of the game. Doesn't matter what I think, though, matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag keg save of the game, the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And the winner from our last podcast, that would be Mary Jane. Mary Jane, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Give me your full name, give me your email, and I will have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of their 3 fine keg locations in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. Ken, anything to say before we go?
Yeah, buddy, good to have you out on the road again. Nice to see you out there. As we mentioned, a great dinner out in Seattle.
Yes,
fun watching the games
Japanese
together.
Restaurant in the North America. Great stuff.
Impressive stuff. Always a treat. And yeah, fun. 2 fun buildings to be in. The atmosphere was great. There were lots of, as we mentioned, tons of Jets fans, and all of you came up to us.
Jets
we really appreciate.
Man,
Appreciate it.
Does anyone travel as well as the Jets fans do? Come on. I mean, so good. So good. Jets fans, you rocked it there tonight. Hey, maybe the stick tap, maybe the lamplighter of the game was the in-house camera person who worked for the Canucks, because they managed to find a way, Ken. Everything that you saw on the Jumbotron just looked like a wall of Canucks jerseys, and that wasn't the reality in that building. It was hard to get camera shots where there weren't Jets jerseys in there, so there was a lot of really tight group shots. You know, you find 4 friends who have Canucks jerseys on, and they'd pull in tight on them because Jets fans travel so well. And again, Ken, the way that we had people coming up and chatting
Awesome.
with us, we love that. We love those moments. If you ever see Kenny and Renny out and you want to stop and say hi, please do so, because we absolutely love those moments. You rocked it, as you always do, in the arena, in Seattle, in Vancouver. You always do it at home, and you always do it here in the chat room. Thank you for that, Kenny. You absolutely rocked it. And I'll say this, as I always do before we go. Oh, by the way, a loss, late night, 2 late night shows. Last time we had almost 800 people in the chat room. We've got almost 600 in here after a loss, after a time change. You guys absolutely kill it, as do our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation that we're having right now in this space going in this space for us. That's Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing, Sweet Lou Furlan, Cambrian Credit Union, the Johnston Group, TransCanada Brewing Company, and the Keg. Ken, you have something to say before we go?
Yeah, you got a big broadcast on Monday and Wednesday. Just want to let the people know to be tuning in on Sportsnet for those broadcasts.
Sportsnet Monday Night Hockey and Wednesday Night Hockey, looking to see the Jets get bounced back at it. Because I'll say this, Ken, maybe something we talk about in that show, something we didn't talk about in this, but this is another loss for the Jets against a team above the playoff line. How's this for a stat? The Vancouver Canucks in their last 3 games have as many wins against teams over the playoff line in their last 3 games as the Jets do since Christmas time. The Jets' record against teams above the playoff line after December 25th, 3-7. So the Jets are struggling, no doubt about it, to beat good teams right now. They need to get back to that. And no wonder on a night like tonight, Rick Bowness was not happy with his team's performance, because they need to get back to showing the good teams around this league that they're a team to be contended with. Ken has got to go.
One last one. One last one. Rutger, 3 assists today as Michigan defeated Notre Dame to advance to the second round of the Big Ten tournament.
Right. Good stuff. Okay. That's it for us. Thank you, everybody. It means the world that you stuck around here tonight. We will talk to you at the game after Monday Night Hockey with yours truly, Renny, hosting, but I will be hosting this podcast after that. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.